What's going on, everybody? Simple back at it like I'm checking my height. Today we are checking out the fine art conservation, the cleaning process. Shout out to Baumgartner Restoration. If you guys haven't, make sure you go show them some support. Their video link will be down in the description below. If you guys haven't yet, make sure you guys sub up over here as well. That way you can get notified when we drop another video. And if you have a request, Google form is down in the description. Let's go.
In this video, I'm going to be focusing solely on one aspect of conservation, and that is the cleaning process. So
Yeah.
before I
Last time he used this weird, like, pink goo stuff and it took all the dirt off.
get
I don't know.
into
Okay.
what I'm doing and walking you guys through my technique, we first have to understand what it means when I say a painting is dirty and that it needs to be cleaned. Now, paintings have really two things that might need to be removed from the painting, and that is the accumulated surface grime and the old varnish. Now, accumulated surface
old
grime
varnish,
is
okay.
really just that. It's grime that has settled on the surface of the painting, and that grime can be anything from the residues from tobacco, tar, nicotine, all the other combustibles that are inside of pipes, cigars, and cigarettes. It can be soot from the painting hanging over a fireplace. It can be coal dust or oil dust from an old furnace. It can also be cooking oils from a kitchen. Pretty much anything that lands on the surface of the painting that has no business being there is surface grime. Now, the other thing that's on a surface of a painting that would need to be addressed and potentially removed is the old varnish. And varnish is composed of a natural resin and a solvent that, when mixed together, yield a slightly viscous liquid. Now, this
Oh my
liquid
god, you can see the color coming
applied
back.
by brush or sprayer or roller or rag to the surface of the painting.
It's like a
once
magic
the paint
eraser.
is fully dried or oxidized.
Oh, look at all the stuff coming off of it, too.
Artists will apply a varnish to their own artworks, though not always. Sometimes a dealer or a gallery or a museum or another conservator or a homeowner or pretty much anybody who comes in contact with the painting might apply the varnish. And the varnish is applied to the surface of the painting for several reasons. Primarily, it makes the paintings look really good. The varnish
How many cotton
saturates
balls
the
do you
colors.
think he has to go
It
through in
makes
this
them
whole
look a little bit more
process?
intense, a little bit more vibrant and lively. It makes the darks look very, very dark, and by contrast, the lights look much brighter, and so it adds depth to the painting.
Oh my gosh. Honestly, if you didn't know that this painting was dirty, you'd almost assume that it was painted in these colors. At least I would. But look how much brighter our arms have gotten already.
A certain lively quality to an otherwise dead painting. In addition to making the painting look good, it can also protect the painting. Because it's an actual physical layer separating the paint surface from the world, the varnish can act as a barrier.
Oh, look at the
and
brown
protect
layer.
that paint from handling, from surface grime, from
That is so
something being
crazy.
spilled on it, kids with crayons, splatter from house paint, just about anything you could think of that would get in contact with the painting, the varnish can isolate it from the actual paint. Now, over time, natural resins like damar, copal, mastic, even shellac will change with exposure to UV light from the sun and from early light bulbs without UV filters and exposure to oxygen. The varnishes
Just scrubbing
can
years of
darken.
time
They
off.
can become yellow or brown. In some cases, it can become gray or even blue-gray. And they can crack because they are non-flexible. They can also become cloudy or milky if they become exposed to ambient humidity or water, and that's called a bloom. So you have a material that has been applied to the painting
Look how
after the painting
clean
has
that
been
is.
finished, and that material has changed over time. And so we want to consider removing that material so that we can reveal what the artist saw when they deemed the painting complete. Now, a lot of people will say that the varnish should never be removed, that that's a patina that is on the surface of the painting, and that it adds to the painting's quality. It makes the painting look better. It makes it look more mysterious. And those are all
It's a fair
interesting opinions,
Yeah.
but they're all
Fair opinion.
inaccurate.
Okay.
If the artist wanted to apply a patina to their painting, the artist could apply a patina and tone down the colors. But most artists, when they apply a varnish, do not envision that that varnish will ever become yellow or brown, or it will crack, or it will become cloudy. And so if that happens to the painting, we have to understand that that varnish is now defying the artist's original intention. And so that should be considered something we want to remove.
Very true.
Now, the process of removing a varnish, while one of the more interesting and exciting parts of conservation, is also one of the more perilous aspects. Anytime you remove something from a painting, you always run the risk of removing or altering
Look at all the
original
shadowing.
paint layer, and that's something that we definitely don't want to do. So unlike additive processes
Look at the blush
such
level.
as structural reinforcements or retouching, which are done with modern conservation materials that can be removed safely without running the risk of damaging the painting, removing an old varnish can be tricky. Now, before any varnish gets removed, it's important to know the composition of the varnish, and there are many ways to go about that. A sample of the varnish can be taken to a laboratory for analysis, which we would hope would yield the resin makeup or the solvent makeup as well. And then it can be reverse engineered. You can take a wild guess at what the varnish is and start throwing solvents on the painting and see what works. You can use your experience and other evidentiary clues from the painting itself to help guide you.
You watch this guy clean painting for hours.
Try to rely on research into the artist and their working techniques to
a little time
understand
eraser
what varnish
liquid
the artist may have used. Now, once the varnish is known, or there's a good idea of what kind of varnish was used, several tests can be made to determine its solubility in various solvents. And this is important because even if you know that Damar varnish was used, you still have to understand the best way to remove that varnish. And there is no hard and fast rule. Every painting is unique, every set of paints is unique, every artist's working technique is unique, and every varnish is unique. So the removal of Damar varnish from two different paintings may require two
There's so much depth to her eye now.
So, once you know the varnish, and you have an idea of the solvents that can be used to
Look how
soften
clear
the
it just
varnish,
got. Look at the
and
color in her
solidify
eye.
again, some tests have to be made. And those
I feel like
tests
the
are
camera
generally
even had to
made at the edges
refocus.
of the painting underneath the frame rabbit, where nobody will see them. And it's important to make lots of tests because while the varnish may be a unified layer that sits atop the painting, the paint layer underneath that varnish may differ in various ways. So some colors are more fugitive or vulnerable than other colors. Some painting techniques are more vulnerable than others. So in some paintings, you may find that the reds and the greens are more vulnerable than the whites and the blues. Sometimes you may find that the background has many glazes, which are more vulnerable or susceptible to damage than the flesh colors or the faces. So a lot of little tests have to be made to establish a baseline and an understanding of how the varnish can be removed and where the areas.
Now, do you have to go to like some kind of schooling? There's got to be some kind of cleaning school for art, right? Figuring all this stuff out and how to do all the tests and stuff. That'd be really interesting.
More peril exists.
I didn't even know this was like I knew painter. What is it? I knew paint touching up was a thing, but I didn't know it went to this level.
Into the considerations for how to clean a painting. Sometimes a painting can be cleaned with swabs. Sometimes the varnish has to be removed with scalpel. Sometimes the varnish
Which we saw.
Needs to swell and absorb the solvent and then be removed with swabs or scalpel or compressed air. There are a number of different techniques for removing varnish, and again, because every painting and every varnish is unique, the approach has to be tailored to.
Is there a compilation out there of all the different techniques?
So, armed with information about the composition of the surface grime, the composition of the varnish and its appropriate solvents, and an understanding of the painting itself and what areas may or may not be more vulnerable, the actual cleaning can begin. When this painting arrived in the studio, it was plainly clear to me that it was quite dirty. Now, I wasn't aware what was causing it to be dirty, but I knew that the painting should look more lively, that the skin tones should be less yellow, and that the painting had a significant amount of something on the surface that was causing it to look this way. After examining the painting and making several tests, I determined that there really wasn't much accumulated surface grime on the painting at all. There wasn't a heavy layer of oil or tobacco or soot, and that the yellowed brown color was coming almost solely from the discolored old varnish. Again, with more tests and examination and some information about where the painting was painted and when, I was able to deduce that this was in fact a natural Damar varnish. So I made some tests determining areas of vulnerability and areas that I wanted to be particularly cautious about cleaning, and luckily for me, this painting was very, very stable. Now that's not often the case.
So that must just mean that places that you wipe, and that must be the reason why you're using the Q-tip around the eyes and everything, just to be more careful. I mean,
you get very lucky and you get a painting that was well built with good materials and cooperates in the cleaning process, like this one. So generally, we would think that the reds
what do you
might
do
be
when
more
it doesn't
fugitive,
cooperate?
or some of those browns in the
You gotta rebuild it.
But all of these paint layers were stable, and so the cleaning process was really fairly straightforward and not terribly difficult, which I was very glad for. I know my client will be very happy to hear. So to clean this painting, I employed an approach of rolling my own large cotton swabs, saturating them with solvent, and then slowly working through the painting. The swabs are made by taking a cotton ball, disassembling it, and rolling it onto a little wooden stick handle.
Oh, that's cool.
Then tightening that up so that it is not loose.
Now, foam would probably be too abrasive, right? That's probably why it's cotton.
And then saturating
little strings are just abrasive enough
with the appropriate solvent mixture that I have determined is strong enough to soften the natural resin, but mild enough to not pose any risk to the paint. Now you can't see that I'm actually using multiple different solvents and different strength mixtures. You can see just the edge of one of the jars in the lower right-hand corner. And in this one, I think I had 4 different strengths of solvents. And by and large, I will start with the weakest of the solvents and see how that goes, and then slowly progress to a stronger one if I feel like that's needed. It's always a good idea to start with a very weak solvent or solvent mixture and work your way up to a stronger one. Then
that way you
start
don't
off with a strong one.
burn through.
Obviously, if you start off with a very strong one and it is too strong and you cause damage to the painting, there's no going back.
Yep.
So with a solvent saturated swab, I can apply that to the painting and agitate the varnish. The solvent will soften up the varnish or turn it soluble again.
Please hit the bottom of that arm.
Can be used to agitate or
killing my
lift
OCD
that
right now.
solvent off. Now there are many different approaches
Please
to
hit the bottom of the arm.
paintings.
Please hit the bottom.
You have to roll the swab as opposed to rub the swab. Sometimes you have to dab the swab. It really just depends on the painting. Now again, I said this one is
much
a fairly straightforward, fairly easy painting to work on. So in this case, all I had to do was agitate and roll.
Almost looks like they're photoshopped into the painting now.
Now you'll notice that when I clean the painting, I'm focusing on small areas rather than the whole painting itself. And these small areas, these shapes, are largely defined by the image itself. So I first cleaned one arm, then I moved on to the next, then I focused on one cuff, and here I'm going to start focusing on just that section of the mouth and the face. And there are a number of reasons that I do that. Among them, it's much easier to be focused and in control of a small area than if the entire painting were exposed to the solvent all at once. It's just easier to be in control of what you're doing when you're working in a small space. And two, I've found that even though the solvents have been tested to make sure that they won't harm the painting, it's always a good idea to not expose the raw painting to any excess solvent if you can. And by making sure that those boundary lines coincide with the image itself, we make sure that if there is exposure, it's in an area that's not a flat color field or an open area where you could potentially see that mark.
Wow.
Now, I've omitted the cleaning of the background because it was not all that interesting and it just took a lot of time. But here we can see the painting finally cleaned with all of that old natural Damar resin varnish removed, the retouching completed, and a new synthetic,
it looks like you at least went around
stable resin varnish applied. The painting looks good. The colors
Yeah,
are rich
it
and
does.
saturated. The darks
Looks like
are
the
dark.
girls from The Shining.
The lights are bright. There's
It's
a
sketchy.
beautiful sheen to the painting. It is as close to the artist's original version.
Whoa, did you see that in the paint? I thought her eyes were gray for a sec. In the beginning, when he was up close, they looked brown. And then as he came over, maybe it was just the lighting in the paint, but it made it look gray. Oops, I'm going the wrong way.
There's
Here,
a beautiful sheen to the
see
painting.
it? And then right
It is
there, you can actually see how it's two different colors. Oh my God. That's so cool.
as close to the artist's original version or vision as it has ever been, and it is stable and sound for the next 100 or so years. So, thank you for watching.
That's really cool.
I hope you have enjoyed this small window into the cleaning process.
Absolutely. We always do, man.
Get into
Definitely. What is going on here? I don't even know. Pressing the space bar too many times. Definitely a cool video. I extremely enjoy these. These are so cool. So cool. I could literally sit here and watch this dude do this for hours. Hours and hours. Let me know where we're going next. Google form down in the description. Make sure you guys stay safe, stay healthy, stay positive. I'll catch you on the next one.